Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Munchetti.
Our headlines today. Plans for a 1% pay rise for NHS staff are dismissed by unions as a kick in the teeth.
Work with us to beat the racists. A senior police officer makes a plea to the Premier and football leagues.
Quarantine-free holidays in Cyprus from May for British holidaymakers if they've been vaccinated.
Help for some, but not for all. There was extra support for pubs and restaurants in the budget this week, but hairdressers and gyms say they still lose out.
Good morning. Liverpool make history for all the wrong reasons. They lose 5 home games in a row for the first time ever. Chelsea, the latest side to win at Anfield.
And it is a chilly start to the day out there, but high pressure keeps things largely dry, if somewhat cloudy, over the next couple of days. I'll be here all morning with more details.
Good morning. It's Friday the 5th of March. Our top story, a proposed 1% pay rise for NHS staff has been described by health unions and the Labour Party as an insult.
Sir Keir Starmer says COVID heroes deserve a bigger pay rise, but the government says the economy is currently under pressure and that any rise above 1% would require cuts to services. Our reporter Charlotte Wright has more.
It has been a relentless year for those working in the NHS, battling a health emergency like no other. So tough that for 10 weeks at the start of the pandemic, the public took to their doorsteps to show their appreciation for those on the front line. Now the government has recommended a pay rise of 1% for NHS staff in England next year, which some have described as a kick in the teeth.
It's a really difficult time. I know nurses that have been suffering with PTSD. I know people that have moved out of their homes and not seen families to protect the families from COVID, nurses. And for some nurses, I honestly believe this is going to be the final straw.
The figure's been submitted by the Department of Health to an independent pay review body. It says anything higher would require re-prioritisation of funds. Last night, the Business Secretary highlighted the difficulties currently facing all parts of the economy.
No one is doubting that the NHS has been absolutely first class in this whole pandemic. What I am suggesting is that the whole economy has been under huge pressure. When I look to people in the hospitality sector, in aviation, in retail, many of them are very, very worried that they won't even be in a job.
Trade unions have contrasted the Chancellor's response with Scotland and Wales, where health workers received bonuses last year. But the government says more than 1 million NHS staff continue to benefit from deals which have delivered a pay rise of more than 12% for newly qualified nurses and will increase junior doctors' pay scales by 8.2%. It says while pay rises in other public sector jobs are paused, in the NHS they are not. But some believe the proposal would actually leave them worse off.
We don't come into the NHS, we didn't come into this job. I'm not a nurse for the money, but I'm working harder than I ever have before. So just something that was in line with inflation, I'd be happy with.
Trade unions have also made submissions to the pay review body, which will make a recommendation in May. The government will then decide whether or not to accept it. Charlotte Wright, BBC News.
And we're going to talk to the Health Minister, Nadine Dorries. She'll be joining us at 7:30.
The lead voice on football for the National Police Chiefs Council says the Premier League and the Football League need to work better with the police to stamp out racist abuse.
The BBC has used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain a copy of a letter which Deputy Chief Constable Mark Roberts sent to league bosses outlining measures they could take. Our Home Affairs correspondent June Kelly has more.
And Yandander entered low.
Swansea v Manchester City in the recent 5th round of the FA Cup.
It's a corner to Swansea.
After Swansea's defeat, online racist abuse was directed at their British Asian player, Yandander.
It did have a big effect on me and I was upset and I was angry.
Dander, one of so many footballers who've been targeted by the trolls. Others include the Manchester United trio, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Martial and Axel Tuanzebe. Lauren James of United's women's team, her brother Reece, who plays for Chelsea, and his teammate Antonio Rudiger, Romain Sawyers of West Brom, Southampton's Alex Yankovic, and the Arsenal duo Willian and Eddie Nketiah. 11 players from different clubs, but all in the same team as victims of abuse. Deputy Chief Constable Mark Roberts is the lead on football for the National Police Chiefs Council. The BBC has used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain a copy of a letter he's written to the chairman of the English Football League, Rick Parry. He sent a similar one to the chief executive of the Premier League, Richard Masters. The league says Mr Masters was only made aware of it when we asked for a response. The letter calls for a joined-up approach to tackling racism, both at grounds and on social media. It was sent 2 months ago. Neither organisation responded. The BBC contacted them both this week. Since then, both have replied to the letter.
I think it's disappointing.
Mark Roberts wants better cooperation from clubs to get access to players, vital in mounting a prosecution.
We actually have some difficulty getting through club legal departments, player welfare teams. We've had experiences where a force has been making real attempts to try and get to a player. They've hit this wall at a club, and then publicly the players saying, where are the police, why they're not making contact.
Sterling here makes it 2.
The Premier League said it had been involved in regular discussions with the police and it was doing everything possible to eradicate online abuse. And the English Football League said it was looking at ways in which football and policing could be better coordinated. June Kelly, BBC News.
Cyprus will be the first country to allow British tourists who've been fully vaccinated against coronavirus to visit without further restrictions from the start of May.
Travel abroad from the UK, of course, is currently only allowed for exceptional reasons until at least May the 17th. Let's find out more in practice about how this will work with reporter Simon Jones. Morning to you, Simon. Just to explain what Cyprus is outlining.
Well, many of us are keen on the idea of a summer holiday abroad, and Cyprus is certainly keen to see the return of British tourists. Now, before the pandemic, 1 million of us used to visit the island each year. Since the pandemic, visitor numbers are down by 85%, and it's had a big hit on the economy there. So the Deputy Minister for Tourism has said to the British government that British tourists will be welcomed back from the 1st of May, as long as they have had both doses of the coronavirus vaccine. And when people arrive, they won't need any sort of quarantine, they won't need any sort of testing. But this is in some ways in conflict with the government here, because at the moment it's illegal to have a holiday abroad. You can only travel internationally for exceptional reasons. And under Boris Johnson's roadmap out of lockdown in England, the earliest they envisage holidays abroad starting again is the 17th of May, so a couple of weeks after Cyprus would like to see the return of British tourists. Now, the Department of Transport told us overnight that they are committed to working to fight the pandemic and also find a reasonable way to allow people to travel abroad. So this week we had the first meeting of a new task force. It brings together people from the government, from the aviation and maritime industry, from tourism too, to try to look for a route map specifically to allow international travel. And of course, if it is allowed in the future, then ultimately it will also depend on how the vaccine programme goes here and how it goes in the countries abroad where we're intending to go on holiday.
Sam, thank you very much.
Confidence in coronavirus vaccines is increasing around the world, according to a new report by Imperial College London and YouGov.
A survey in 15 countries has been monitoring attitudes during the last 4 months. Found that almost 6 in 10 people would take a vaccine if it was offered to them now. Our health correspondent Naomi Grimley has this report.
It isn't enough to have a steady supply of vaccine. Countries also need to have enough people willing to take it to achieve herd immunity in the population. Researchers at Imperial College London have been tracking vaccine sentiment in 15 countries over the last few months, and this is what they found. The survey suggests that people in the UK are the most willing to have the vaccine, with 77% stating they would take it if offered now. France, Singapore and Japan have consistently remained amongst the least willing. In these 3 countries, less than 50% of those questioned would accept a vaccination, chiefly because of apparent worries about side effects. Even in these countries, though, confidence has grown since November, when the first COVID vaccines were only just emerging. In fact, 9 out of the 15 countries in the survey saw vaccine confidence rising over the last 4 months. The team at Imperial says it's heartening.
What we can see now is that when we look back and compare our data from February to our data points in November, actually for most of the countries in our survey, confidence is increasing. We see more people that are willing to get the vaccine if it were made available to them, and we see less people saying that they are worried about side effects potentially. So overall, it seems like a better story in terms of increased confidence across our 14 countries.
The task for many countries will be overcoming the vast amount of misinformation online, which undermines vaccination programmes worldwide. Naomi Grimley, BBC News.
The street artist Banksy has confirmed he's responsible for an artwork that's appeared on the wall of a jail in Reading.
Now, the painting shows a prisoner possibly resembling famous inmate Oscar Wilde, escaping on a rope made of bed sheets tied to a typewriter. Campaigners are currently lobbying for the abandoned prison to be turned into an arts hub rather than sold for housing.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.